And we are live. Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. We once again are joined by Draco Argentus. Draco,
Bill,
how are you this afternoon, sir?
I am doing excellent, sir. How are you doing?
Oh man, it's been a pretty good week. We actually got to see, new movies in an honest to God theater here in Texas, which was just
What's the movie?
wonderful.
What's this thing you speak of? And
Yeah,
not to
yeah.
mention going to see a thing, whatever this movie is, going to see it. That sounds like you actually left a quarantine, a state of quarantine.
You
That's
know, it,
odd.
it's funny since we
For
entered
some people, it's
into
odd. Go ahead.
well, since we entered into quarantine, I've actually been out of the house a lot more often than I used to be.
Isn't that odd? That's so very odd.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was a very interesting timing. I met my girlfriend about a week before they shut everything down, and so
You
yeah,
might never have met. Some
so
would
yeah, I get
say it
out of
was
the house a
fate,
little more.
kismet, the stars aligning.
But yes, no, it was so wonderful getting to see just going out in an honest to God theater again. I went and saw a couple 3 weeks ago, we went and saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was just, oh man, getting the chance to see that on the big screen. It it was it was great because my girlfriend had never noticed that he eats the fly at
Yeah,
that scene when they're
you're
when he's
going
getting
to give you're going to give what you're going to give criminals a bad name or something like that. And he eats the fly.
yeah
He gets carried right on through the scene, and it's like, oh.
yeah yeah, it was great. He didn't even flinch, and it was when I knew about the scene, but I'd never really kind of keyed on it myself. But when you see it up on the big screen, you can't miss it. So
Right there. It's right there. Don't you know it's right there? Calm down. Yes, yes, we all saw it. It's right there. Yes, we can tell.
yeah, it was cool, So I mean, um, getting to see it back on the big screen again. It's funny. Gary on Nerdrotic talks about how people have changed their habits, and getting folks back to the theater might not be as easy as people think. But I didn't know how much I missed it until I went back. For me, I mean, I'm guessing you haven't had a chance to go back to a theater yet, Draco.
Myself, no, I have not taken. I've not forced it. I've not taken the opportunity. So
Are
the
there
thing
are there
is,
any open where you're at?
and because I haven't checked. I could probably do a list of open theaters here and find out. The opportunity, not having to look for it, never really came up. So if I were to say look for open theaters near me or near where I am, try getting the numbers right, not saying them live on the air.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, don't dox yourself. That's usually
Okay.
good to avoid.
There are at least a few. We do have, of course, a drive-in theater near my location.
Is
They
it
are
a
listing.
is it a real proper theater, or is it one of these like mini pop-ups in a parking lot kind of things?
This is a proper drive-in theater. So we got one of those. There is a NCG theaters near me that's still open. They are listing several dots here. Whether or not they are open, the list is only a few wide here.
Hmm. You know what works pretty good to help you find open theaters is Fandango. I've got I've got that app on my phone, and they've got a really nice, hey, just show me what's open, and so it'll come up that way. We're fortunate
Well,
here in
these are listening.
Texas.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, we're fortunate here in Texas. Like most of them have opened now. There's very few still closed.
It looks like it's fairly similar here in the midst of Michigan. Michigan's been one of those things. There have been. I mean, I know the mask thing is big. It was the strongest thing that masks are, of course, mandated as they are in many places. But we have never really shut down that tight. It was always just what the places that were open, especially the essentials, were what were we going to do to keep open and to do things, what we're going to sterilize and clean more and so on and so forth. But I never got the impression of truly being shut down. I prepared for it at the beginning. Then the imperative went away, especially with being able to eat out, which from my point of view is an exposure event every time you do that.
Oh yeah, it is. Make no mistake.
Yeah,
it is.
We've got, and there's another. So you can go out, you can spend time with a whole population of people. I mean, you are safely distanced, socially distanced, but you're spending time with a whole lot of people, enjoying a movie and laughing and guffawing out loud with a mask or whatever. And
yeah, I've been to 2 different theaters since they've opened back up. And, certainly walking around when you're not at your seat, they're all, definitely, saying, hey, look, have the mask on. Once you sit down, both of the different theaters I went to, they've got you 2 seats apart from anybody in any direction. And they're leaving you alone for the most part. It's like Lord Thoth is going to be heading out to see Tenet next week. Glad to hear it.
Indeed.
And I am doing that on Tuesday. And if anybody who's watching is interested in seeing my reaction stream, that'll be Tuesday evening. Time a little bit TBD, depending on when I get back. I think I've got it scheduled for like 8-ish right now, but that'll fluctuate. And hey, Ottawa's opening back up. I am glad to hear that. Schools and businesses open. This is a good thing. And being respectful is important. And one of the things I would say to that is, I'm not a mask guy. I don't like the dang things. Okay. But at the end of the day, if that's what these businesses need to be able to remain open and get things moving again, if they want me to wear it, I'll wear it.
Do it.
I'd rather have them conducting business than not. And if that's the price, that's the price. I'm okay with that.
And no matter what you say about it, even the level of partial measure, fine. This is what we do. Not only is it a measure of any kind, but it helps people feel safer.
Yeah.
On the whole, you're doing this socially. We have to get the wheels turning again. The whole system's got to get on the rails. So, I mean, this is even entertainment. We discuss entertainment. This is pop culture. So this is what we're discussing. Mm-hmm. But you don't have, if you don't have the entertainment, you don't have the things to entertain you, you start not caring about other essentials because life becomes the drudge. We don't need that. Look, we got theaters that are opening again. We've got entertainment. We've got possibilities.
Yes.
Let's get out and enjoy them.
Yes.
And we've got to do this on some level because this stuff needs to keep going. Life has got to keep going, and we'll just do it.
If the price of that is wearing a mask, okay. It almost, if you're thinking about it from we need entertainment to get moving and we need things to kind of keep rolling sort of deal.
To normalize the day-to-day of this.
Yes. It's from that sense, if that gets people comfortable to do things like going to the theater again, I don't see why anybody would have a huge problem with that. It's, those places, they employ kids mostly. And, if you want those kids to do things like, buy Star Wars figures or, go get their Netflix subscription, they need to be able to make money and okay, if mask lets them do that, all right, let's do it. Yep. End of the day. So it's, I want to start off, we've kind of been vamping for the first 10 minutes, but
indeed,
one of the
not EFAP. Let's get into this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We'll definitely be prompt on the time today because we don't want to run over the Inquisition that I'm sure pretty much everybody watching this will probably roll to. Yeah, exactly, Lord Thoth. Bingo. Small price to pay for making everybody feel comfortable. But to me, probably the two biggest pieces of news, I think, in sort of our entertainment sphere and pop culture like that is, one of them is a very sad piece, and that's Chadwick Boseman, of course, passed a couple of days ago. And he was a very good actor. He truly was. I think about him. I think my favorite role that he did was in 42 as Jackie Robinson, of course. And he was a very talented actor. He was only 43 years old, and sadly passed after a 4-year battle with colon cancer, which is just crazy. I mean, what's your kind of favorite memories of Boseman, Draco?
My favorite memories end up being just seeing him in the last few years, because it hits me that hard knowing in these last 4 years, probably at some point during final production and showing of the first movie that, I mean, to be quite honest, I had heard of him. I've heard of him by name, which is actually impressive that I would hear the name of an actor before I was made familiar with any of the roles that he did. But I barely knew who Chadwick Boseman was, even when I found out he had received the role for Black Panther in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Civil War came out, I mean, I didn't know him that much, but he added that gravitas. I understood him, and then I found out, oh, he's been in these others. He's an excellent, a top-tier dramatic actor. And
absolutely,
this is amazing to get this kind of guy to play this role. And I think he did excellent with everything. I really loved seeing his portrayal in Civil War. And it was such a side role. He didn't get that much development, although he even got a little bit of that turn. He lives through the death of his, talk about topical from the point of view of what we're talking about now. He lives through the death of his father. And by the end of the movie, he sees it from a different perspective. And that's a big deal. And he really carried it. Now, at some time during when that movie came out, when it was in production, when they were doing promotion for it, you got to think that's when he found out. That's when he found out about this. And this man continued to fight this battle for 4 years. Anyone who's had family who's had cancer knows that cancer is it can be such a strain on a family and the support that you have to give. This man did it without public support.
Nobody knew.
He kept it quiet. He kept it
quiet.
No
one knew.
I mean, geez, right down to that promotion of a photo where he's looking, he's gaunt and thin, and several months back, and going like, geez, is he doing this for a role? What is this going on here? Kept it quiet. He did not publicize it. Did it, but fought on his own.
Nobody knew, and it made it all the more touching because I knew that he had done visits for kids in cancer wards and things like that. It wasn't super well publicized, but you did see some stories and pictures about it. And again, to your point, he kept it quiet. He was doing the things that a good man does.
Yes.
And he was using his celebrity and his I assume his money as well to help particularly the kids, and you're talking like St. Jude type kids is the sort of people that he would visit regularly. And then to learn that it was so personal to him when we find out about what caused him to pass the other day, that was just heart-wrenching. And to me, it spoke about what an amazing person he was.
A man of quality, a man of deserved renown who probably should have been more renowned for the kind of guy that he was. And I mean, there's many things that, especially in pop culture nowadays, there's a lot of issues that actors get spoken of, especially by some of us, especially by some, and this is not unfair to refer to them as just adult pretenders.
Mm-hmm.
But amongst them, there are still quality people doing quality things. I mean, just like being able, using that fame, not just the fame, but the fact is that they're playing these dreams, these images of mythology for these young kids, and going there to a hospital to show up and to give them a little thrill, a little happiness in their life.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, several actors do that, but
yeah, but
this is a big, this come on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this picture right here, right? And now that we know that he was suffering at the time, you can see it. Yeah. To your point about him looking gaunt in the past, you can see it in this image right here, and he's with a St. Jude's kid, and it, to the headline's point, he was battling the disease himself, and
he was absolutely there. And this is more than just representation. This is more than that, the idea that he understood. He was going out there and doing something while he was going through it. I mean, that's just the idea that he was that he does it alone. I mean, I'm kind of caught in this because it is personal for me. I had parents who both passed from cancer, from fighting. One fought for several years. The other was fighting silently, and nobody knew about it. And we lost them both. But the thing is that idea that you keep it in and you fight your own battles and stuff like that. But even while doing that, dresses himself up, goes out there and puts smiles on those kids' faces. And inside, he knows exactly where they are, but it's more than that. He's just being a solid guy, a solid human being.
Yeah, and we need a lot more Chadwick Bosemans in front and center, and being role models to everybody. I mean, we all know about all those open secrets in Hollywood. I don't believe for a minute that this guy was involved in any of that garbage, and that he was going out there doing that with no publicity whatsoever about his own struggles. This is a good man, and
I believe that.
And what I think is really neat about this particular story that I just happened to sort of randomly pull up, this is from India, out of New Delhi. So it's cool to see, to me, that this is, it's making it worldwide what a good man he was, and that's encouraging to me. Get
out there. It's like you said, we need more individuals like that. I mean, that's the representation that we should see out of actors coming from Hollywood. That's the representation that means something. That means that's the very idea of what of the best parts of those people, and what they can do with their platform.
Absolutely.
Don't think about
Absolutely.
it as a platform. Think about it as something that you can actually use to make people happy, especially when they're in those places, especially when they're suffering, especially when most of the time they're spending without a smile on their face, and you give them a smile on their face. That's so much more important, especially now.
I can't think of a more sad and touching story at the same time. You know what I mean?
It busts me up, man. Busts me
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. It's
Rest in peace.
absolutely. I mean, rest in peace, Chadwick
Allah.
Boseman. We we need more Bosemans out there, and it's a shame. The world has definitely lost something with his passing, and it's as Draco said, rest in peace, King T'Challa. The world's lost a good one here, and that's a shame. Oh boy,
That's harsh, man. We want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but sometimes there's just we need to put some reverence on this too.
It's an unusual enough story for someone to be that high quality of a person in Hollywood that it bears some time. You've got to say thank you when people are doing things right.
Indeed.
You have to. It's so important. Oh, of course,
especially when you're thinking only the good die young. That was definitely a good one that passed too soon.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh man.
But then again, should we carry on? Yes, we must carry on.
Absolutely.
Please, sir.
Let's now I'm going to take you to the total opposite end of the spectrum now.
Oh hell, you're going to spin me upside down.
At least once.
Oh,
my goodness. So, bringing up an article from our friends Bounding Into Comics. If anybody
Bounding Into Comics.
Absolutely. Hail John F. Trent. If anybody watching the stream does not frequently visit this site, I cannot recommend it enough. John F. Trent and his staff do an amazing job, bringing entertainment stories together that, a lot of us on YouTube and the Fandom Menace are frequently reference. One of the great things that he does for us is he brings these things together onto his site, so we can click on him for the ad money instead of perhaps the places that aren't necessarily friendly to us. So
put these strange spins on the things.
Yeah, that's right. Oh goodness. So after plummeting viewership numbers, Star Trek boss Alex Kurtzman announces the first season of Star Trek Discovery will air on CBS in September.
Plummeting viewership numbers. I thought this was the most popular show on CBS All Access. This was the most popular show. Plummeting numbers? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we don't even know the numbers on this show. We've never seen them other than what aired on broadcast TV in Canada.
There you go, and there you got him.
Yeah. I mean, Lord Thoth can speak to that. He, of course, is coming to us from Canada, and he's, unfortunately, I suppose, had access to it on broadcast TV. Those of us in the States and the rest of the world, of course, have not. And Star Trek Discovery is finally. I'm actually really pleased by this news for a number of reasons, Draco. The first being what we were just talking about there, where we've never seen the numbers for this show, not real legit numbers. So Discovery being on broadcast CBS will finally allow us to see some real ratings.
That's the first step. Yes.
Yes, and that's good. The only episode of this that's ever aired on broadcast TV in the States was the first episode right before they launched CBS, right before they launched it on All Access, right?
Yes, you could say they're teased.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was not a bad idea, honestly.
That's how you sell. That's how you put the pilot out there that sells the show.
Mm-hmm. Of course, unfortunately, for Kurtzman, it didn't particularly sell the show. But Kurtzman tweeted out, "Black alert! Star Trek beams to broadcast for a limited time with a special presentation of the first season of CBS All Access Star Trek Disgracery, coming to CBS Network beginning September 24th at 10/9 Central." Man, that's even kind of late in the evening. 10 o'clock Eastern.
But this is a family show, right? I mean, you want it earlier in the evening. We get all this talk about. There's even more. The talk about how this show and who it's aimed for, with all of the. Well, they're going to censor it because it's broadcast now. So I don't think we need to talk about the adult situations, the language, the violence, and all of those things that you add those little tags before the show.
Yeah. Oh, you have all those warnings about it. I've seen the show, of course, and I'm going to watch season 3 so that you don't have to. we'll talk about it. Bring in some reviews
to understand it myself.
Yeah, and I will definitely watch it because it's in the wheelhouse of what we do here on the channel, and it's certainly the first 2 seasons were not Star Trek. I mean, that's one of the biggest things to say about it. And Jaffa makes a good point about why this is coming to the broadcast TV. One of the biggest reasons this is coming is because a lot of their shows that were scheduled to fill the fall schedule don't have anything. I'm a huge fan of Survivor. I have watched Survivor since season 1, when Richard Hatch ran naked down the beach and ultimately won, all the way up to what we just watched in season 40. And, love Survivor. But there's no Survivor this fall. And there's not going to be any Survivor next spring either, because they normally film 2 seasons over the course of a singular summer. Normally they'd be done by right now with their next 2 seasons, but they haven't even filmed the things. And so they have to have something to fill a gap in the TV schedule. And so here we go. We get to see Discovery.
We're reorganizing. We're reorganizing this whole experiment in online. We got some content out there. It's been behind the paywall. Maybe we could slide this stuff over here. See how that works.
Yeah, and they're bringing two. No, go ahead, Drago.
I was just going to say, as both Jaffo and Sienna D have said about the faith in it, you don't have to have faith in it if you're just looking to fill slots that otherwise you wouldn't have commercial dollars in. So
they got to get something on TV, so they're going with something. I mean, it's not a dumb move by CBS, because I mean, even though they won't show us the numbers, they've got the numbers. They know how many subscribers they have, and they know how many of those subscribers have watched this show. And
brings up a good question, doesn't he? He brings up a good question of the selection of their new independent content on this CBS All Access, however you want to name it. Any of those shows that you could have picked one of the other selections, but they are putting this out there.
Well, they do really have that many gaps. I mean, it's more than you'd think.
So if they can pull it all out, or some of it, I suppose, it's being a thought, being just putting it out there as a possibility. But either or, enough they're filling gaps, and that's really what it comes down to. You need to get ads. This is broadcast television. You need to put ads in things. That's how you pay the bills. So they're filling slots.
Yes, and they're bringing more than just Discovery in, just more than just STD. They've also got, there were 2 or 3 other shows that have been available only through the All Access service, and a couple of other places where the majority of at least the audiences in the States haven't seen these shows. And I mean, I get the decision. I don't think it's going to work out well for them, but I understand it.
Well, the only favorable thing for them that I see at this point is it puts it in front of more normies on the opposite side of that paywall.
Mm-hmm.
As we like to say, people who don't care about the core of the story. And this doesn't have to be Star Trek. It doesn't have to have Star Trek in front of it. People can put it on and barely pay attention to it. And look, it's got a lot of flashy lights and great big bugs that travel through space and time that might have come from somewhere else, and AIs that want to be AIs but are already AIs.
Except,
I mean, we care about all those details. We care about all those details, but someone else is just looking for a show to turn on and eat their pizza and enjoy something else. And look, I've never seen this before. Oh, is this that Star Trek thing? Doesn't look like Star Trek.
Yeah, it's, the one of the worst things to me about Discovery, and I mean STD and STP, both of them, the biggest issue I've got is that they're calling them Star Trek as much as anything else. If STD, drop the ST off of it, right? Let's just call it Starship Discovery, and you do everything the same, right? Call the Federation something else, call it, right? But everything else is roughly the same. I don't think I would it still wouldn't be a good show, but I don't think I dislike it anywhere near as much as I do now.
Because it doesn't connect to everything that came before, that, as shown several times online by plenty of people who know, as we do, those of us that are in the know these things do not stand together. If you start taking details from the past, comparing them to the present, it's like they didn't care about the history. They didn't care about knowing what went before. And even though they will say that they care about the representation, the diversity, they will care about the diversity.
Oh, they do care about that.
Yes.
Ish.
As if diversity was never part of it. And then they'll talk about, well, they'll say things about Gene Roddenberry, some of which were based in truth, and best way to hide a lie is couched in truth, or at least misrepresentation. Let's not say that anybody's lying, but how they can tell that. And this is kind of getting off. It kind of gets off the track. But the thing is that now we get to see Discovery placed in some hard light, placed in a place where anybody can pick it up. And if we're going to be absolutely fair, whether or not this is a Star Trek product considered by anyone, this can be measured. It can be put under a firmer microscope now that we put it amongst a larger group of potential eyes.
Yes, and
let's see what the world thinks now.
And Mary makes a good point, and I think she's right. So for the majority of the CBS broadcast audience, this is going to be new content.
Yep.
And it's going to be the only new content. So I think she's right. It's going to start off well. It'll probably do I bet you the first 3 episodes do indeed do quite well. I have a feeling
That's the
it'll.
whole idea. You're getting it out. You're saying exactly what she said. Getting out in
Yep.
front of these new eyes, these people that have never seen it before. They didn't care about it. They didn't need to feel like they had to go get it. Now they have access to it. And I believe she's very right. This
Mhm.
is it's going to be entirely based on the show's ability to drive its own story, to drive its own as any series gets. This is the fairest shot it could have been given. But I
Yeah,
believe
agreed.
she's right. It's not going. I don't believe it's going to fly very far, very well.
It won't gather momentum. That's for sure. I would not be shocked if we see what ratings it does get just completely crash by about episodes 4 and 5, particularly with season one. I mean, season two was definitely more offensive to truck fans than season one for a lot of reasons, like what they did to Spock and things like that. But interestingly, if you take out the Trek out of it, season two was a bit better of a season. It was worse to Trek, but it was better. Do you understand what I'm getting at, Draco?
Yeah, yes, I understand very much what you're getting at because they started including elements that tied it into more history. You start bringing in Pike and the Enterprise amongst other things. You start dealing with a few other subjects that include the original Trek through lines. But the thing is that because they're not paying true homage, they're not paying a true homage to those things. They decide they want to change this or put a pin in that or whatever, and they're taking it and mutating it more into their product, what they're selling,
Yes.
what their particular variety. And it's like you said, yes, you rip the history off it, you rip the words off of it, and everything else that ties it in there. And on some level, this could have been a different story. It would have been a Kurtzman story, and then you judge it by efforts. You judge it by different efforts. You judge it by a science fiction show, a modern science fiction show. I mean, they certainly put money into it,
They
regardless
did.
of who was running it. They put effort into it. There were people that put in the design of these things. There were people that put into the setting. There are people that put into the costumes, regardless of how much I hate them. There are people who put into the creature design. There are people who put into the universe. It's
Yeah.
just you put that in a Star Trek universe, and you said it, and I'll say it because I keep saying it myself whenever I watch these things. It's not Star Trek. And if you would have kept it away, it would have meant something more, but at least it would have been judged by that instead of trying to pervert a canon that was already solid, that was already diverse, that was already interesting, beautiful, dramatic, action
Yes.
filled, full of meaning and emotion, and
You know,
something that so many people cared about.
it's funny that you mentioned the uniforms because I'll be honest. If you take those Starfleet emblems off of those, I don't mind them. The ones we
No,
got. You just take the Starfleet emblem off. I'm okay, right?
honestly, I see that emblem, and I'm going like that feels so discontinuous between the Enterprise continuity and I mean even that even in if you want to use if you want to really go into the weeds and we go to what 2009 and JJ did in that movie,
Yeah.
because technically in the very start of that is probably the most classic Star Trek that movie was, because you had a classic crew based not too far from the history that was set up in the last canonical Star Trek show Enterprise.
Yes.
And then they drove that forward into a J.J. version of the Enterprise. Now, the thing is that the very first thing when I saw promotions of these things, this does not feel like it comes from, as much as they tried to tell us that it did, a similar timeline. I mean, this is old hat. People know about this. This does not feel like A being Enterprise, B being the original series, B Star Trek, that this goes in between. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things. If you take that emblem off there, you make it anything else, and you stop referring to, well, geez, you could even refer to the Federation if it was not the United Federation of Planets. You stop referring to heroes and people in Star Trek canon. I mean, we're giving this all the chances that that could be if you disconnect it completely from Star Trek. That would be giving it every possible opportunity.
Yes.
But
and as an action, flashy, shiny, expensive sci-fi show, it's not awful. But when you make it Star Trek, and all those things you're just talking about, connecting it to all that history and the entrenched characters and all of that, that takes so much away. Yeah, and Jaffo says he agrees. As it turns out, America isn't racist. I don't think the average viewer is going to like the heavy-handed way Klingons are used to address political division in the U.S. And he makes a damn good point, because that was exactly what they did with those Klingorks in season 1 in particular. They
put a little too bit of a heavy hammer on it, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Instead of setting up an allegory or something applicable, this to me, this is the storytelling. It's the story group. Whether Kurtzman says we're going to do it like this because he was hard in the showrunner position, he was the guy taking charge, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously this is where your storytelling prowess starts to dull, starts to fade.
Clearly.
And this is where we think the biggest issues are. Thinking of it from the point of, we know JJ had his issues, and seems like Kurtzman has very similar issues, and those things are going to still be there. I would be very surprised if this does anything more than fill a slot.
Yeah, and it's, if we do have the numbers from Canada that it did when this aired on CTV, and it premiered with just under 2.3 million overnight viewers, and by the end it was at about 940,000. And that is a massive drop. You've lost, what's that shake out to? About almost 60% of the viewership? Oh, yeah, John F. Trent tells us right there. By God, I should have just finished reading John's article. He did the math for us. But yeah, it's nearly a 60% drop in the viewership. And there's a reason for that. And Jaffel says to it is, when season 1 came out, he wasn't paying attention to politics. This is one of the things where he noticed they were blatantly putting ideology and propaganda into film. And he is not wrong, not even a little bit. And if somebody who's not keyed into politics picks up on that, think about how just like in your face it's got to be if you're not somebody who's looking for that and you're like, holy shit, right? You know what I mean?
That's a big Twinkie.
Yeah. That's right. That's a really big Twinkie.
They're laying that Twinkie down a little bit hard. White cream everywhere. Oh, there we go. Racist white cream.
Oh, you went and did it there, Draco. You went and did it. Oh man. So we'll see. Here's your Rotten Tomatoes scores there on season 1, audience score of 51%, which is pretty gosh darn low, to say
It has
to say the
it has its
least.
people who will stand with it and
It
vote for it, but a
Yeah,
50% score, that's not really successful.
something you
That's
should.
barely even cult.
Yeah, now, something else you should notice on this though. Look at the number of people who rated it. 8,400, just under 8,500 people even bothered to give it a score on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is a very recent screen cap, so I'm sure the number is roughly the same. This gives you a real insight into how many people were not watching this show. If you go look at the ratings count for, say, Ghostbusters 2016, hundreds of thousands, and that was for a terrible movie that pretty much everybody hated and nobody watched. And you can only get 8,500 people who care about this show enough to even bother giving it a rating, good or bad. I mean, that
The fact
tells
that it's so
you
small, yes, the fact
that
that it is so small, that's, if I may, the the fact that it is so small, it's a small number of users, and that selection of users produced a 50% score. Uh, Also, this is a. I don't want to harp too much on it because it would get us off track. Because there's we have been sort of dissatisfied with the aggregate sites and where their minds truly lie and where their controls are. When I see numbers like that, I also have another thing, and this is specifically my point. Not only your point that only that many people came to this site. I mean, I can't even remember if there's that flag for you have to have at least for a first run show when theaters were still a thing. They instituted that setting that you had to have a sort of proof of purchase, a watch, so that you could
Mhm.
actually review it. But
Yep.
even beyond that, now we've got only that many people. Now, comparing it to like Ghostbusters 2016, comparing it to The Last Jedi, it's I also think it not fair because those were battlegrounds, and
True.
I think not unfair to call bot farms locations places where a lot of mysteriously sourced reviews were issued and packed out that number to an insane degree. But
I don't disagree with you, but to get something like that to happen, you still have to have a level of enthusiasm behind it. I mean,
there you go. That's the amount of interest, the amount of attachment, the willingness to go to do something about that.
Mhm.
Why those and rather this? Well, this is not a front line then, is it? It's not a point of interest. There isn't as much care into it. It's lost the attachment of people that it's supposed to engender attachment, people that are supposed to engender interest, people that are supposed to care about it.
Yeah,
And if you do not have care, then it goes away.
exactly. Exactly. And it it's sad to me because w- Star Trek was always among any kind of sci-fi entertainment out there. It always had its own unique brand that made it so special. And are there other intelligent sci-fi shows out there? Sure, but none of them were like Trek. And
Very special place to be interested in it. It was one of the it was a place that it was hard to be a fan. It was hard to be truly interested in it, regardless of the fact that you would get real sci-fi I mean, just look at the original series. That's the source of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Real sci-fi stories, real sci-fi writers, and doing it less, not without wink and a nudge to the audience. Say, we're going to take this seriously. Not only are we going to take this seriously, we're going to talk about serious issues. They're going to be framed in a certain way.
Yep.
They're going to be representative. They're going to be applicable. They're going to be all these sorts of things.
They dealt with those things head on. Absolutely.
Yes, and gave you something back from it. I mean, you were interested in it because not only did you feel like you might have looked at an issue that you didn't think of that way before, but you could feel that it wasn't being preached at you. You could feel that it was just as meaningful. If you actually thought about it, you'd say, wow. You'd either say, that is exactly what I needed to see represented that way, or I never thought of it that way. People that actually cared about these stories, people that actually cared about the subject matter, that gave you something. And
when things are done with appropriate allegory and care and talent, people who disagree with the point that's being made through that metaphor, they can still enjoy the content. When things are done the right way, you can win converts. You can change people's minds, because one of the most powerful ways to change people's minds is through talented and nuanced storytelling. And by God, TOS and TNG and DS9, I mean, they all did that. Every one of them was good at that.
I'd almost say they were good at their job.
I know, right? So, oh boy. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on with Trek, because we'll finally get an honest accounting that CBS can't hide from. And I'm looking forward to it. I will certainly check in and discuss how those ratings go as the season wears on. So we are coming up towards the end, because I don't want to run into some other big shows that are streaming tonight. But I wanted to hit on one other big topic that's been sort of circling around with the fandom menace and the types of places that I visit and I like, and Draco as well, and really everybody in the chat, honestly. But there have been some Doomcock, Overlord DVD on YouTube, has been breaking a whole lot of Lucasfilm Star Wars rumors. And he has been getting, in many cases, a lot of corroboration of those rumors from another channel that I personally love, and that's Midnight's Edge. And to frame it for everybody who, if you haven't seen it, the basic rumor that Doomcock was discussing is that there was an executive and board level decision at Disney specifically to bar any of their talent, whether it be creative, whether it be on screen, whether it be behind screen, marketing, company wide, to ban them from having any sort of aggressive interaction with the fans, their consumers, their customers, the people who give them money. And
respecting fans, respecting people considered their customers. How?
I know.
No,
it's a radical idea. I know. It no company has ever tried that and made money before.
wait, just a moment. Carry on.
Oh yeah, by all means. I mean, you need another minute. We can get.
I think I'll be able to hold it in. About effing time, Disney Corporation, formerly Walt Disney, who probably said once or twice about repeating that particular adage about paying attention to your fans, your customers, doing something, giving something to the customer, and not while you are doing it,
Yeah.
berate them, treat them badly. I mean, geez, the whole idea of the Disney parks, which have been suffering so much in the last several years, wasn't there the you would go to a school, a training ground where you would learn to how to treat customers and how to always be cheerful regardless of how you felt, and it was a big thing to be able to present that face forward to the customer to make them feel special in their parks. And the whole idea of giving a positive turn, even when you wanted to tell a particular story in their media, they would still, it was about entertaining their customers.
Yes. Well, no, what we're accusing them is of finally becoming capitalists, Jaffo, because apparently they haven't been for the past few years.
No, they haven't. Not if you want people to buy what you are selling.
I mean, Disney doesn't work if people like us are not giving them money. If we are not buying their merchandise, if we are not watching their television shows, if we are not going to see their movies in theaters or streaming on demand, whichever it is, if we are not consuming actively their product, Disney no longer exists. And that's treating people right at the parks. It's treating people right on, I mean, I can't believe I'm going to friggin' say this, but on Twitter. You know, you can't have Ryan Johnson's spouting off at Star Wars fans and tell them they're a bunch of man babies because they didn't like that he decided to castrate Luke Skywalker. End of the day, had Johnson handled that better, the controversy would have died down a lot faster with the normies. I mean, people like us, we still would have been bitching about it, but it wouldn't have been news and keep coming up day after day over and over and over because we were just as mad about the treatment of us, the customers, as we were about the treatment of the IP.
Absolutely. Had you not had those individuals extroverting their own internalized issues, I mean, obviously, if you're going to treat your customers like that, someone has obviously not gotten out of their own diapers yet. But
yes,
the thing is that this has been going on and on. Not to mention, has it been going on and on? Not to mention, have the people been speaking out? But it has also been used as that repeater that the media grabs on and holds to, the media that wants to continue to have access, as we call them, the access media.
Mm-hmm.
They want to continue to be in the good graces, and the people that are inside Disney's creative teams coming out and saying those things, that gives them immediate carte blanche to repeat that ad infinitum. So they can
Yes.
continue going on and on over and over again. And this is all we have heard from the dissatisfaction with the properties that have been being used for messaging, for telling a story that was not part of the original plans, for giving independent takes on long-standing franchises. I mean, at the same time, it's one of the things that speaks to it. At the same time, in the same company at Disney, you had two major fingers. You had the Marvel camp, which came out of the Universal movie deal to make Marvel movies, and then you had
Yes.
the Lucasfilm camp that was started up by George Lucas selling that product and setting up a few things on his own, but then got turned, and we know that it got turned after it was delivered off from him. And now we finally hear something. I mean, the real thing would be to say, what would be the absolute date we could put on the date of the sale of Lucasfilm and the date that this article came out, that it took them that long to rein in their creatives and say, you know what, just sell your product and stop talking to your customers as if you are trying to chastise and tear them apart and prevent them from buying what we're trying to sell them.
Yes. It goes back to that. Gary likes to show this clip of Kelly Sue DeConnick all the time, right? If you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. That is that is the stupid. I mean, okay, done. You don't want me buying your book, I won't, right? But
really didn't have to say that, but thank you for being so literal.
Disney went and did that writ large, though. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I love comic books, but I mean, the truth is, I haven't collected floppy books myself all that much in my adult years because I got home from college and they were gone. It was. And the thought of trying to recollect all that I never did as a result, right? But I never saw any kind of messaging like that from the people whom I was reading books about. And was there allegory and metaphor and themes about certain things in the books that I read when I was growing up? I bet there were, but people like that, they pushed people away. They told people to go away, and then they act surprised when they went away.
I'm not even certain that they were surprised. I mean, that's the whole idea that DeConnick said that, but she wanted to push people away. I mean, that was part of it. You almost have several different flavors of how they were actually behaving. I mean, there's almost it hits right back on the idea of the stuff we don't like to bring the politics into it, but you can't stay away from it when you have someone like Kelly Sue DeConnick coming on and saying that about not buying her books because you don't like her politics. Well, that's all fine and good, but then when it's poorly written metaphors and heavily couched issues and signaling to certain things, as Jaffa was saying about them censoring content and amongst other things, changing things and going. I mean, just that. Censoring content is a whole nother issue of being willing to change things. That's another political issue that drives it, that they want to change to a current political standpoint. But you're not doing anything that we wanted, or at least not we as the major portion of the buying power of the fan base, of the customers, as so many would have called us, consumers must consume.
Yep.
But it's about that level of what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Are you doing the right thing? And separating the politics rate out of it. If you can't tell your political stories, if you can't tell your political stories in a way that actually drives the thing, instead of just being mean, instead of just being argumentative, contrarian, instead of being that way, if you can't do it, then obviously you're not meant to do this kind of work. Go back to school, go back to writing, write some books until someone actually buys them in significant numbers. But the thing is that a lot of these people were put into positions and then they had to sell. They would be put into the writers' rooms of all these different companies. They filled out the writers' room in Disney, and they wanted to do these things. They wanted to teach these lessons. They wanted to say these things. They said the right things to the right people, and the right people said, yeah, I want you to tell that story that way. That was not what was going to get you more bucks than less. And
I
it ended up being that. It ended up being that law of diminishing returns. Another thing that Gary mentions about this process, that
mhm.
we go into it thinking we're going to get the same product. Matter of fact, we're going to get better product. I mean, that was where I was thinking about Marvel. Gary knew. Gary knew what was in the tea leaves as
Yes,
far
he
as
did.
what was happening in comic books. He understood when they stopped caring about the directions they were taking, and the only thing that was important was the Marvel movies. He was deriding that, decrying it, and at that same time, I would have put myself more in the camp of I heard that they were going to connect, that they were trying to buy Fox, and as much as that made me feel a little bit uneasy that they were buying more properties, I was going, yeah, let's get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into it. I was one of those.
Oh, me
Those.
too, brother. Me too. I thought that was
I
a
mean,
great
we were
idea.
so snowed over, wanting those things, wanting the whole thing to be brought together, that we did not see the snakes in the grass. Did not see where this was leading. And some people did. And let's be fair to any one of those out there, that some people did see this coming ahead.
They
Some people
did.
did see it. And I mean, hey, if you hire someone who's a political writer for a writer's room on a creative project, you're probably not, you're probably going to have a bad time. But
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm very encouraged by that news that we're hearing that the Disney boardroom has clamped down and said that those things about how people treating the fans don't fly anymore. And we'll see where that goes. I think
it's hope,
you
right?
at
It's
least
hope.
it's hope. And we do
I mean,
get
hope will bite us as much as it will rise us above. But go on.
yeah, I mean, we do definitely see good signs from a few corners of the creative teams, right? I mean, Favreau is definitely saying all the right things. Got to give him credit for that. He's even using words that float around the fandom menace circles. I mean, it sounds almost like he's quoting Doomcock. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And he's done
And
more of that. We have reason to believe him, as we were discussing last week, that
yes,
his actions has supported the words that he is speaking. It doesn't matter if you've got some people that kind of like the project he's working on, some people that really like it, some people that don't like it, but he actually appears in his actions. He is trying. His
yes,
creative teams are trying. I mean, you got Filoni, who has built up a love him, hate him relationship working with him. But the sounds like, regardless of where Filoni came from, he's attempting to push the new appreciative through line forward.
and if the creatives care about the product and they care about how the fans receive the product, I'm at least at a minimum, I'm hopeful that if I can see the heart in it and if they're willing to take criticism, we'll get to a better place. Right? Now, does that mean that everything that they roll out is going to be amazing? No. And we shouldn't expect that, right? I mean, you look at the prequel movies, and the only one that was really solid was Revenge of the Sith, and the other two, I mean, they weren't awful. They were Star Wars, but they weren't certainly remotely at the level of the episodes 4, 5, and 6. But there was at least some listening to an extent, I suppose.
Well,
And
they were definitely listening. You even spoke. The thing is that put it in order, and you can see it. George had an idea. George had this idea when he created the first movie. and he had several ideas, some of which he's spoken about publicly, and that didn't turn out so well. But it was Star Wars created by George Lucas.
Yes.
So, as I was then, I am now. I am not a defender, but I liked the prequels for certain parts. I will pick and choose what I liked, and the rest of it, I will take it or leave it. But he started moving that along, and then you got into the second movie. That didn't change so well. But by the time to the third movie, even George listened. Even George Mother Lucas listened.
Yes, and
he made that product. He made that Revenge of the Sith. He made it with the scene that every fan was waiting for. He made it with fan service. Come on, he listened,
and he did it right. He really did. There's a lot of people say the whole prequel trilogy should have been just like an extended version of Revenge of the Sith, and I could have dug that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that definitely would have got us there better than standing there saying goodbye to Anakin and friends and stuff like that, and then killing young weaklings and you are my brother Anakin and
yeah. All right. Well, hey, I think we should about wrap her up here, Draco, because
that sounds like an idea.
The big boys will be firing up pretty soon.
Yeah.
And with the way Doomcock schedules his streams these days, it'll probably just pop up here in a moment with a 10-minute notice on it. So
let's be ready for it.
That's right.
It's been great talking to you once again, sir. I'm glad we could entertain a few people in the chat today.
You betcha. Yeah, we had up to about 8 people at one point watching, and every week it get a little bit more steam, and it's a lot of fun. It's really good having folks talking in the chat now. It helps create a two-way conversation. Having folks on the stream with us. I love being with people much more than streaming alone. Having you to talk to and with, Draco, that makes a big difference.
Oh, I appreciate your compliment. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anything you want to plug before we close down for the day?
Nothing at this moment. I only have life going on, but at least we have life, and we got our own issues to deal with in real life. So hopefully we can get a few things to keep us going, like good movies like Bill and Ted and other things going on. And maybe we can also enjoy things like your favorite YouTuber. Go out there and find a member of the Phantom Menace that you want to stick with, and maybe spread out a little bit, find people that they're promoting, and spread the love. Spread the love, because we need support of all of the channels in the Phantom Menace who are trying to give us options, who are trying to put the real messages out there, especially at these times, especially when we've got so many problems going on in the news and things like that. You don't really need to deal with that all day long. But we're also looking for the good things that are coming out in our media and the good things that are coming out that is entertaining us, the things that will eventually get us to step beyond the next hard thing that we have to deal with. So go out there and like and share and subscribe any of your favorite YouTubers. All of them. You hear Jake talking about people, you hear Gary talking about people, you hear Doomcock talking about people, you hear just go out there into the fandom. I'm filled with names in my head, and I can't pluck any of them out right now.
People out there that if you haven't checked them out, I mean, I'm talking to a small audience, so everybody here has probably seen these folks, but I'm going to shout them out anyway. Latino Slant has got a really cool channel. He has a very different point of view than a lot of folks in the Fandom Menace, and I really appreciate listening to where he's coming from. He had a really great interview with a team that produced a movie called it was Millennium Bugs, and I listened to that interview this morning. It was really cool. He's got a cool channel.
Example, yes.
Yeah, he's got a cool channel with a different point of view. If anybody here hasn't checked him out, I mean, go check out Paulie. I like his content. I love his channel. He is a cool dude. we will be on streams together at some point. It hasn't worked out yet, but we're actually well connected now, so we can get it scheduled better, which is cool. And Culture Casino, another real, I love his streams. He's a
good example. Yep.
Yeah, he's able. Yeah, and he gets on with guys like Tom from Midnight's Edge a lot. Wes Moody Webcast. Lots of good people out there who have cool content that's new and fresh. And if you like this style of entertainment, those are a lot of people who do similar stuff.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Draco. Definitely appreciate it. Chat, thank each and every one of you for being here, because without y'all, there really isn't a show. It's just me bullshitting, which isn't a lot of fun, to be honest. So, it really is the interaction and the folks. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody.
You, brother. Take care.
You too.